Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far and welcome to today's video, which is going to be the next episode in my makeup and movies series where I'm getting ready for the day and sharing all of my thoughts on the 7 films that I saw at the cinema since I last saw you, while trying a load of hot new makeup products and brushes and a fragrance. This time I'm going to include my first impressions on this new Valentino Born in Roma Extradose perfume that I was very kindly gifted. I also have the Sonia G Mini Sheer Buffer that I haven't used on camera yet, the new Lisa Eldridge foundation brush, and this mega exciting Sonia G collaboration with Tasshyu. This, I'm beside myself that it arrived in time. It's literally just popped through my door moments ago, so I can't wait to use that on camera and commit the horrific sin of using them before washing them, but I just can't help myself. I need to use these brushes and show you them. Usually I am good and I wash them first, but I just can't do it this time. I'm so sorry, Sonia. I have the new Givenchy Prisme Libre Glow Foundation. This is brand new Glow Serum Foundation. I've got one of the new Rare Beauty contour shades. I have some new products from Nars for their Amour Valentine's collection and one of the new YSL blushes, and I'm going to be dipping back into one of the Natasha Denona duos for highlighter, and I'll also be giving the Gucci mascara another go now that it is a bit older. I did expect to have the new Benefit mascara and I was very excited to use that. It looks right up my street, but despite having paid for next day delivery on Tuesday, come Friday, why don't I have it? I don't know. It's not here. I can't see it.
I can't see it. I can't see it.
Apparently it is coming today, but I don't think that is the next day after Tuesday. I don't know if my maths is just wrong, but I'm furious. So I will be trying that next week, but we're going to give the Gucci another try now that it's a couple of weeks old and see how it does. So if you want to see all of these products in action and get my first impressions, as well as hearing about the 7 films I saw at the cinema over the last few weeks, then keep watching. I'm going to start off with a little bit of the Natasha Tasshyu lip mask. Stop it. Because my lips are really dry today. I'm not really sure why, but they're definitely in need of a little bit of hydration, so I'm going to start off with that, and then I'm going to give this perfume a spray because I want to give it as much time during the video to sort of go through at least into the middle notes so I can get a bit more of a idea of how much I like it. So according to Fragrantica, this has blackcurrant opening, a rum middle and a vanilla base. Very simple little notes list there. Stunning bottle. Love the spikiness. Could also be used as a weapon should the need arise. Oh, I mean, I can already smell the rum and the vanilla coming through straight off the bat. It is a fruity opening, but you've definitely got the vanilla and that boozier quality to it straight off the bat. That's a lovely opening. Okay, we're going to keep going. Let me spray on the wrist so it's easier to check in on throughout the video. Okay, so we're going to kick off with some eyeshadow and Sonic 3. Yes, I was forced against my will to go and see Sonic 3. I think we saw this in December, like maybe just before Christmas. I can't remember exactly, but this was quite a while ago now. So this was obviously a family film, one that my son particularly was very excited and keen to see. We have seen the first 2. Not my favourite films, I'll say that. As far as children's films, I'd much rather a Disney or a Pixar number, but it was watchable, I'll say that. It wasn't the worst children's film I've had to sit through. It also wasn't the best. It was funny in places and it had, you know, a lot of action that never sort of lost the children's attention. It never felt slow from a child's perspective. Pretty funny in places. Not really any sort of wow factor. I'm dipping into this shade here. Nothing really wow, not super beautiful of a story, not like over the top funny. It was just, everything was okay. My son definitely enjoyed it a lot more than my daughter. My daughter is 10, my son is 8, and I think he came out and he just really loved it and thought it was brilliant. My daughter was less impressed. I think she gave it a 7, and I am definitely more so on my daughter's page. So for me, this was a 7, funny in places, nothing like super wow that I would like recommend you run out and see, but it did definitely keep my son entertained for the whole film. Next up, a film I'm a little bit scared to give you my thoughts on. I feel like I might have a slightly unpopular opinion on We Live in Time. I'm not 100% sure how everybody else felt about this, and it feels a little inappropriate to be so critical of such a moving and touching storyline of a film, you know, but I had one big issue with this film. So if you don't know We Live in Time, there's no spoilers in these films, so I won't tell you anything that isn't sort of in the synopsis of the film or in the trailer, so it's no secret what I'm about to say. But this is starring Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield. And it's the very moving story of a couple dealing with cancer. Now, I feel like I might have sort of indicated that I hated this film. I definitely didn't hate it. I thought Florence and Andrew Garfield were both amazing in this film. I thought they were perfect. I thought they played their roles perfectly, and there was some really beautiful moments in this film. It was a beautiful story, very moving, of course. However, one massive issue I had with this film that really stopped me being able to fully connect with the characters and the storyline in general. I'm going to use a finger for this shimmer because it's sort of seeming like we're getting a lot of fallout but not a lot of impact. It's kind of struggling to adhere with the brush, so I'm using a finger. Definitely more of a topper, this shadow. There's not a huge amount of base there. The packaging of this whole collection is stunning. Tom Ford primer. So the issue I had with this film is the choice to time hop quite so much, so rapidly, and just so frequently, particularly at the beginning of the film. So what I mean by that is, obviously it's an artistic choice. I'm not a fan of this choice, and that is to skip and jump back and forth across the timeline. So without giving anything away about the storyline, it's like, you know, it goes from the meeting to the middle of their relationship to back and forth, before they met, after they met, in the middle, before, but and and it was very disorientating for the story, particularly in the beginning. I was so confused. Like, are they a couple? Are they divorced? Are they married? Do they know each other? What's happening? It was all so back and forth and out of order that I really lost the connection to the story. I also felt like that was really damaging as far as showing the relationship between Florence's character and her daughter. No joke, I think the child in this film got about 3 minutes of airtime. She was barely in the film, and yet the film was kind of reliant on, I guess, the moving nature of a mother and a child and their relationship when the mother is poorly and unwell and suffering with cancer. How precious that time with your daughter is, and all of that stuff that was, you know, so important to the film and so important to the storyline. And yet we literally met this child for about 3 minutes as a baby throughout the film. So I found that was really a missed opportunity. We really didn't see much of Florence's relationship with her daughter, not Florence, her character, you see what I'm saying. There was barely any airtime given to that, and it really lost some of the connection. For me, I loved how normal Florence and Andrew's characters and just their relationships and their friends and family and their lives were so normal. This really felt like, you know, it could be very representative of lots of families going through this, and they didn't sort of really Hollywood it up, which, you know, could have made it seem a bit too of a too much of a pretty picture of cancer or too much of a glorification of such a disgusting disease. And you know that I'm a super emotional person. I nearly cried watching Sonic 3, but I didn't cry watching this film, and I feel like that was really unexpected. In fact, one of the members of staff at the cinema that I go to on my way in said, "I hope you've brought tissues," and I thought, oh dear, maybe I should go and get a second box, because I am a crier. I'm very easy to make emotional, and yet I never quite shed a tear during this film because it just didn't give me the time to digest anything before we were back and forth again, and I felt rather dizzy. So for me, this was a 7. It was a good film. I enjoyed it-ish, but it could have been so much better without the disorientation of this timeline. It was annoying. I don't love that. I know that's going to be a personal thing, but for me, it didn't work. Next up was Mufasa. So I wanted to go and see this. I was curious about this. Neither of my children had any interest in seeing this film. Having watched the trailer, I had to drag my daughter. My son flatly refused to come. He did not want to see it whatsoever. This bottle, glorious. So, okay, what's happening? I can't get into it. Oh no. Maybe this will be a very short video. Why won't you open? Am I supposed to twist? What is happening? Oh, my God, I'm in. Whew. So I persuaded my daughter to come and see this while my son was playing football, because he literally he had no interest in seeing it, didn't want to see it whatsoever. Not as potent as I was expecting. Fragrance check. The fruitiness has definitely dissipated now, so we're mostly getting a vanilla-y scent with a hint of rum at this point. Shade match, decent. This is 3N, and I'm using this Lisa Eldridge brush for the first ever time, and I'm excited. This is such a good size for traveling with as well, and you could absolutely also use this for contour, bronzer, all of those creamy cheek products. Wow, actually, I take it back. As I'm applying this, the fragrance is coming out and it's definitely there. This is a great shade match for me. I did not know Givenchy had great undertones like this. This is 3N. And I thought it was going to be one of those neutral shades that is in fact bright yellow, but it's not. I'm not very familiar with Givenchy foundations, so this was a bit of a guess of a shade, and I am happy with it. It's perfect. This is going on like a dream. So I dragged my daughter along to see this. I will say I have seen the original sort of live action Lion King film, and there has been a wild, vast improvement in the CGI of the animals. However, having said that, not when it comes to the flipping lions. Disney has still not cracked CGI lions, okay? Every other animal and the scenery in this film is breathtaking. The elephants, the giraffes, the buffalo, the impala, literally Timon and Pumbaa, every other animal in this film looks great as, you know, CGI animals can. Really great. The way they move, the scenery, everything is beautiful. The lions still look slightly off and slightly wrong and slightly mangy, to be honest. They look like they've got a disease. It's something about them like not being fluffy enough or something. I'm not quite sure what's going wrong, but they're just not quite right. The way they move as well, just it's wrong. When their two cubs were having the race, it literally nearly made me laugh. It looks so silly. This felt long, and although my daughter just never likes to say anything negative, she's such a positive little angel, I could tell that girl was bored, okay? She was doing this sort of leaning forward and fidgeting. She was restless. I could tell she was bored. It felt long and it felt slow. I will also say that Scar's descent from being like a best friend and a lovely, wholesome brother of a character into like double crossing murderous was Khaleesi. It was Khaleesi Mark II. It seemed so out of character and sudden to me. It didn't quite make sense. That being said, the song Bye Bye is an absolute banger. Against my will, when that tune came on, I was giving it one of these. I couldn't stop myself. My daughter was mortified, but we were on the back row. It was fine. I felt like, give me some maracas. What a tune. Everyone's focusing on the brother song because it's sort of, you know, gone a bit TikTok viral, that song. But Bye Bye is the song of the film, and it's an absolute tune. It saved the film partway through for me. I'd switched off, to be honest. As soon as that number started belting out, I was back in. Get me involved. The ending was the best bit. I would say like the final 20 minutes took this film from a 6 to a 7. I really enjoyed the end of this film, and the foreshadowing was really clever, so much of it. So if you've seen like the original Lion Kings, I think you'll appreciate that as well. But because of the sort of slow beginning and the CGI problems, a 7 is the best I could give this. Oh, my lasagna's ready, bear with. Talk about multitasking, my goodness. The foundation might be the best so far in 2025. Let's hope it doesn't dry down and lose all of its glow. Fingers crossed. I need to get these brushes out before I flatly forget to use them. I don't want to disturb this ribbon, but the presentation, 10 out of 10. Wow. All these touches, wow, just gorgeous. Oh my gosh. And it doesn't end there. Oh, I feel like I don't even want to take them out of here. So beautiful. Okay, so the first impressions on the presentation, these are the most beautifully presented makeup brushes I've ever witnessed with my two eyeballs. So soft. What I love about the design of these is it's like the perfect mixture between tradition with a modern touch. Like the top of these brushes looks super modern. The shapes, the beautiful colour, it's almost like a metallic like cocoa shade, and the colour of the bristles feels very modern. And then you have these stunningly traditional handles, that stunning lettering on the bottom, like the perfect mixture of a nod to traditions and the heritage of these brushes and those artisans that make them so stunningly, and then a modern twist. Beautiful. Wow, congratulations, Sonia. This is unbelievable. I'm going to put all of these gorgeous touches back together and treasure them forever. So moving on to this new Rare Beauty contour. I got the shade Mellow. Yes, and this is a more neutral of the shades available, not quite as cool as some of them, because that scared me. I don't typically contour much. I prefer a bit of a bronziness to contouring, but today we're going to try this out because it does look a little more neutral bronzy as opposed to some of the shades which are much more like classic contour. And I'm going to use this mini sheer buffer from Sonia, which I have been using for weeks now. I was gifted this quite a long time ago whenever it came out, but I haven't had a chance to use it on camera yet. But oh my goodness, it's just amazing. I might even prefer this size to the original sheer buffer because for contour it's just that much smaller to keep things, you know, in place, but it's ridiculously good at doing this job. Like, do you see that is a very pigmented product, and I'm just lightly tapping this and it's blending away almost. Just the most natural wash. That's such a perfect tone. That bronzer. The Rare Beauty blushes scare me, and so I was a little scared of this product, but it's the perfect amount of pigment. This shade is really easygoing. I'm excited about that. Nothing new for concealer or powder because I'm not really up for new concealers these days. I'm all concealered out. So moving on to Nosferatu. Now, I love horror film. Horror is my all-time favorite genre. I went to see Nosferatu really not knowing. I knew the guy is a vampire. That's about all I knew going in. I have never seen the original Nosferatu, which is, I think it's a silent film, very old, one of like the original sort of black and white horror films. And I learned while reading up about Nosferatu that it is like a rip-off of Bram Stoker's Dracula, an unauthorized stealing of the story, apparently. Tea. So pretty much I went into this film blind. So it's set in the 1800s and it follows an estate agent. Now let me ask you this question. If you were an estate agent and someone with this crazy scary voice calls you up and says, I want to buy that haunted looking horror house at the end of your street, but I live miles away and I don't want to view this property. I want you to come to me, travel across the lands to sign the contracts in my haunted, horrifying looking house. Would you think an estate agent would go to such lengths? I'm not sure. I can't even get mine on the phone most of the time. But off this guy went to Nosferatu's lair because he wanted a new place to live, apparently. And in true Nosferatu style, he chose the terrifying gothic looking rundown mansion. And that wasn't suspicious at all. So here's the thing. I very much appreciated how authentically old the film looked and felt. For obviously a high quality, high resolution filmed film, it felt old. It felt like a traditional classic film with all these beautiful touches. I felt artistically it was a cinematic masterpiece. By the way, this is the best under eye setting brush. It's so flat and light and airy somehow that it's getting right and pressing the powder right in, but in such a light diffused way. However, the issue I had as a horror aficionado with this film is it wasn't scary to me. It wasn't scary. There was perhaps one time where they slightly got me with the jump scare. But, you know, being made to jump and a film actually being truly scary are two different things in my opinion. It wasn't scary. It felt almost comical at times, I dare to say, I hate to say. Nosferatu is not scary to me. I thought he just looked like a little old man in desperate need of a pedicure, if anything. Like there was this one moment where he was like coming to get somebody and you could see his shadow like doing this along the wall, and all I could think of was Mr. Burns, and I like almost laughed out loud in the cinema. So unfortunately for me, this was a 6. You can't call yourself a horror film and there just be nothing scary about you. It's just, I feel like it is quite tricky to remake that film, such an old classic film, and make it feel, you know, terrifying. We've seen it all at this point. You know, there's nothing we haven't seen when it comes to horror films. And it just fell short, like a true terrifying, demonic character. It just didn't feel that way. Once you'd seen Nosferatu, I just felt like it lost all of the terror it could master because he just wasn't scary. He just looked ridiculous. I'm so sorry. Next up we have A Complete Unknown, which is Timothée Chalamet taking on the role of Bob Dylan in a biopic about Bob Dylan. Now, my dad is the biggest Bob Dylan fan. Our childhood dog growing up was called Dylan and his show name was Bang Bang Mr. Tambourine Man. So he'll be horrified for me to say this on camera, but I'm not very familiar with Bob Dylan. I, against my will, know a few of his songs, but he was obviously a little before my time. So this was very much one of these films that I went to see because I have my film pass and there was nothing else on. I thought, sure, I'm going to go and watch it. And let me tell you, I was the youngest person in the room by approximately 30 years, but we went with it. This is the new YSL blush in shade 12, Nocturnal Nude, and I'm going to try that with the largest brush from these new Sonia collab. Oh, that brush is so soft. Perfect for blush because it's adding such a small, soft amount, so gently. So I'm not really a biopic kind of girl. It's definitely not sort of my favourite genre, but I don't know much about Bob Dylan. I did enjoy the music. I thought Timothy was amazing. Not that I'm familiar with Bob Dylan as a person, but I thought the acting and the singing was amazing, beautiful. And he was so charismatic, which apparently is exactly what Bob Dylan was known for, his charismatic, charming personality, which I felt like Timothy did incredibly well at portraying, as much as I would know. But I will say, if you're gonna make a biopic, I feel like it needed to be a little more impact, like exciting, eventful than it was. I feel if someone made a biopic of my life, it would be much more dramatic and interesting than this one. Not to say that he didn't have an interesting life, I'm sure he did, but we just didn't really see anything that was that exciting or anything that was, you know, crazy or like dramatic. I'd watched the Elvis film on Netflix a couple of weeks before I saw this one, and that was definitely, you know, it was more eventful. Elvis led more of a, well, according to what I saw in the biopics at least, it appeared like Elvis's life was just, had a lot more excitement going on. This just felt like it could have been anyone from next door. It just, there wasn't enough for me. It felt long and it felt slow, and I don't know if that's just me not appreciating a biopic or not being familiar with Bob Dylan enough to sort of really engage in the story. But yeah, I didn't love it. It was watchable, I didn't leave, but it just wasn't my kind of film. I needed a bit more oomph. I gave this a 6. I'm so sorry. Next up, Wolfman. So this is of course a werewolf film, a sub-genre of horror, if you like, and not my favourite sub-genre. I'm not really a big werewolf film kind of girl. I feel like werewolf films, it's so hard, if not impossible, to make them, like, to take it seriously. It's a werewolf. Do you know what I mean? But I will say, on the scale of werewolf films, this is probably the one I've enjoyed the most of all the werewolf films I've ever seen. Oh, I forgot to use my new Lisa Eldridge lip brush. Let's try that and sort of neaten this up. So this was terrifying in places. It wasn't too gory, which I don't appreciate. Oh, wow, that is a crisp line. Oh, I fear my life may have just been changed. It's almost like I've applied a lip liner. Revolutionary. Where have you been all my life? Now, I made an error when booking this film. I usually like, especially during horror films, to sit on the back row because I don't want anyone behind me. That's terrifying when you're watching a horror film. It could be a murderer back there. So I like to sit with my back to the wall at the back. And it's also, if I scream or jump, no one behind me saw. You see what I'm saying? But I made an error when booking this and was like a few rows forward, and there were people behind me. One of the jump scares got me so bad. I swear everyone behind me must have seen my bottom leave the seat. So that wasn't ideal. And the thing is, I consider myself extremely jump scare prepared. Like, you can't get me. I've seen every horror film there is. I know when they're coming, and I adopt my cross eyes technique. If you go cross eyes in the cinema, it looks like you're watching the film and you're an unbothered confident, solid queen, but in fact you can't really see, so it's not as scary. That's what I recommend if you're going to the cinema and you don't want to scream out loud. But this one came so out of nowhere, okay? I don't want to give any spoilers because I also want this to happen to everybody else, because it had to happen to me, it has to happen to you too. This jump scare just came at a really inappropriate time. It was not the mood, it was not the vibe that was going on in the film. It came out of nowhere, no warning, and I won't lie to you, they got me. So I thought for a werewolf film, this had a great storyline and was actually really moving in places, and I almost shed a tear. But being a werewolf film, it's inevitable that there are moments that feel silly. A little bit silly. It's a werewolf, you know, when there's moments that you think it's a little silly. But that being said, as far as this like sub-genre of horror is concerned, I think it was the best one I've seen and I did really enjoy it. So this was a 7. And then the final film that I saw in January was Flight Risk. The most underrated, maybe by myself, film that I've seen for a long time. I've seen the trailer for Flight Risk and I assumed it was just like a standard action film, which I'm not an action girl, but again, there wasn't a lot else on, and so I went to see it with an open mind, or trying to have an open mind. This was much more of a thriller with a lot of action, if you see what I mean. A bit of a psychological thriller with a fair bit of action. Also, really quite funny in lots of places, which I loved. I was also chuffed to see such a strong, independent, ballsy female protagonist who didn't need any help throughout the entirety of this film from a man. We loved to see it. Loved like the twists and turns, kept you guessing, that little bit of comedy throughout. I really loved. This was so underrated by myself. So much better than I thought it was going to be. An 8. Okay, so this is one of my favorite makeup, like faces of makeup I've done recently. I love pretty much everything, okay? The foundation, we're off to a very good start. Definitely still got a good amount of glow. It has, as these stupid foundations keep doing to me, dried down to a less glowy finish than where it started, but it's still got a fair amount of glow. It's beautiful, smooth, very light and natural. I barely used anything. That's like half the amount that I pumped out. A couple of pumps there is like mostly still on the palette. And I got a very natural, light application that looks very skin-like, very flattering. You know, it's not sinking in anywhere. A really nice start, and I really like the undertone shade match. Bottle is gorgeous. I will keep trying this and update you in my January roundup. I'm also working on a roundup of all of these glowy foundations that it has been raining in 2025. It's gonna be my year, okay? It's finally the time for the glowy girls to be spoiled this year, and we definitely have been. I didn't think I had a limit when it came to glowy foundations, but we may have reached it now. This Nars quad I found slightly disappointing. It is obviously a very, like, we've seen this color story before, nothing like crazy as far as the color story. I was disappointed in this topper shade because I feel like Nars does shimmers so well, and this is like really soft and subtle. I felt quite a lot raining on my cheeks while I was applying it and not really much payoff on my eye. I had to switch to using a finger, and that didn't really give me a huge amount more. It's sort of a fairly twinkly topper shade, but it is quite understated. So it's definitely a bit softer than I wanted the shimmer to be. The mattes blended beautifully and they complement each other really, really well. So I think it's a beautiful everyday palette. I was just maybe expecting a bit more from the shimmer shadow, but the packaging of this whole collection is stunning. The packaging of this lipstick is some of the most beautiful I've ever seen. And the lipstick, I love this shade right up my street. It's sort of a darker peachy nude is how I describe it. When I swatched it, I didn't think I was going to like it. I thought it was going to be a bit too chestnutty, but it's just light enough. Super flattering. I love the lipstick. Really beautiful, really creamy satin finish. You already know I love these little duos from Natasha Denona. I used the Simply Shy duo today, just the highlighter, and it's gorgeously complemented everything today. The blush that I purchased from YSL has a satin finish, so this isn't one of the shimmery ones from this collection, but it's not a matte either. It's sort of somewhere in between. Slight bit of sheen to it, I would describe the finish. Gorgeous everyday neutral shade. It goes with everything. It's really inoffensive. It's so beautiful. You can build, as you saw, I built it beautifully, but it starts off so subtle, so easygoing. It's just a perfect everyday sort of neutral but leaning warm shade. Got a bit of a peachiness to it. It's a sort of peachy brown is how I would describe it. Gorgeous everyday sort of neutral makeup look, appropriate, and the packaging is just glorious. I have a couple more of these coming. The launch of these was such a pain in my bottom, okay? It was so annoying. Like, the YSL website doesn't have half of the shades. What's that about, YSL? So I had to buy these from like all different places because the shades I wanted weren't available all in one place. So I'm waiting. I've ordered 2 more shades because the ones I wanted weren't on the YSL website for some reason. So this was the first one to arrive, and I have ordered 2 of the shimmer blushes so I can share my thoughts on that formula as well as soon as they arrive, whenever that might be. The Gucci mascara, as expected, I mean, I always liked it. I started off liking it when I first tried this, but it's definitely grown even more on me. It's strange because the first time I used this, do you remember I said I got a lot of, not a lot, but I got a bit of flaking throughout the day? That hasn't happened since. So that was the only negative that I had with this mascara. We're a couple weeks in now, and it's, I mean, I think the lashes speak for themselves. It's an absolute belter of a mascara. The Rare Beauty Contour I like a lot more than I expected. I nearly didn't pick this up at all, but I think this is like the perfect neutral shade. It was really easy to use, not intimidating amount of pigment, this specific shade. Blended like an absolute dream using my sheer buffer, my mini sheer buffer from Sonia, which is like the best liquid contour brush you could ever hope or dream to meet. It's just perfect for this. Gorgeous, didn't blend it away, but melted it into the skin effortlessly. Definitely going to keep trying this. I'm really pleased with the shade. Lisa Eldridge's new foundation brush is as amazing as you would expect it to be. I feel like this might be the reason I got to use so little of the foundation and yet achieve like a solid medium coverage with 0 effort, 0 brush strokes. It's really dense, so it's really going to buff like a workhorse with your foundation into the skin. So nice and diddy as well that it's perfect for travel, and it also is perfect for cream bronzer or blush or highlighter even, because it's not so large that those products are going to go in too large of an area. So I love that. This is my first, these 2 brushes that I purchased from Lisa myself, the lip brush that I've always wanted to try, and this new foundation brush. My first experience of Lisa Eldridge brushes, and they're both excellent. This lip brush, I think, just like changed my life. I've never used one before, but I've always been curious, and it's just given me such a crisp edge. And this isn't even like a particularly dark or pigmented shade, so I don't really necessarily feel like I need a liner or I need a lip brush, but it made such a big difference to how crisp the line was. These brushes, I mean, I think I've said everything that I need to say. I promise I'm going to wash them now, okay, and let them settle into their final shape. As we know, these brushes, once you've washed them, they all sort of spread out a little more and fluff up, but regardless of the fact that I cheated and didn't do that today, they are so soft, so beautiful, so elegant and classic. And just, they fit their purposes so well. You could, of course, use this for so many jobs. Powder, contour, bronzer, blush, highlight even, because it's got such a tapered point to it. You could certainly set with this brush, but I loved the medium-sized brush for that under eye setting powder. It's the perfect kitten paw, but it's large. I mean, you could use this for a sort of one and done eyeshadow. They're so versatile, these shapes. Again, this sort of smaller brush you can obviously use as a crease brush under the eye like I did today. Highlighter, lots and lots of different uses for the 3 brushes, and just stunningly presented. I feel so honoured to receive this set. It's everything I could have wished for. Final check-in on the fragrance. It's definitely lost the fruitiness that it had in the opening, and it's sort of dried down now to like a sort of slightly boozy but mostly vanilla scent. It's projecting really quite well, so that's a really good sign. I will let you know on longevity and things like that in my January roundup. It's not my sort of typical style of fragrance that I would wear a lot, but I think this would be an excellent choice for someone who likes, you know, a fruity vanilla and would be able to wear this spring and summer through the warmer weather without it becoming too cloying or headache inducing. The bottle is outrageously beautiful, a really nice fragrance. I kind of wish it kept more of the fruitiness throughout the journey of the fragrance though. So next on my list of films, I was desperate to see Presence, having seen some really intriguing trailers for that, but my cinema just doesn't have it on at an appropriate time. It's literally on at 8:40 at night. Okay, that's nearly bedtime. I'm never going to make it through. There's never going to be a day when at 8:30 I want to leave the house. You're lucky if I'm not already in my dressing gown at 8:40, let alone leaving to go somewhere. So I think I might have to wait until that's available on Sky for me to see that one, disappointingly. I don't know why it was annoyingly only on in the middle of the night, but it is what it is. I've seen trailers for Conjuring: The Last Rites. Definitely want to see that. I've loved all of the Conjuring series films. There was also a really intriguing trailer for The Woman in the Yard, which looks right up my street, nice and creepy and terrifying. Sinners, that's out fairly soon. There's a lot of great horror films coming up soon, which is very exciting for me. And I finally saw the 28 Years Later trailer in the cinema. I had, of course, seen it elsewhere, but this was my first, I think it was during Wolfman, I got my first cinema trailer of 28 Years Later. I'm beside myself. I cannot wait for that film. The original 28 Days Later was probably the film that sort of kick-started my love of horror films. I loved that film so much. And this trailer, just from, you know, the actors, the fact that we've got Danny Boyle back directing, I'm just beside myself. There's just no way feasible that I can see, based on the trailer, the director, the actors in this film, that they can mess this up. I just know I'm going to love it. I love the original first two. This is right up my street. That's probably the film I'm the most excited about for 2025. I'm already booked in to see Companion, so you will hear my thoughts on that one in the next episode of Makeup and Movies. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I would love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.